You ever notice how in Alien Earth, every time you think you've got a handle on what's happening, boom, something even worse crawls out of the shadows? I mean, just when we were all still reeling from Isaac's death, Boy Kavalier decides to put his genius brain where it doesn't belong. And now the most dangerous idea in the show's history is about to be born. Because Boy has his eyes, literally, on a monster that doesn't just kill, it calculates, it studies, it plays the long game. I'm talking about the Ocellus, the infamous eyeball monster. And here's the kicker: Boy wants to give it a human host. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. A genius billionaire feeding an alien parasite into someone's skull because he's curious. What could possibly go wrong? But here's the question I want to throw straight at you. Who's going to be that host? Joe, Hermit, the hybrid children, maybe even Dame Sylvia, or is Boy crazy enough to volunteer himself? That's what we're going to break down today. And trust me, the dominoes that start to fall here are the same dominoes that could end the entire franchise as we know it. Boy isn't just a genius, he's a narcissist. The guy doesn't see people. He sees test subjects, chess pieces, toys to break and rebuild. And when the eyeball monster showed off its skills, outsmarting humans, tricking Isaac into disaster, it became Boy's shiny new obsession. Think about it, a Xenomorph. Sure, scary. You can shoot it, blow it up, burn it. But the eye, how do you fight something that thinks faster than you, predicts you, manipulates you? Boy sees that and goes, finally, something on my level. Here's the forbidden knowledge piece. Boy isn't interested in controlling the eye. He's interested in comparing himself to it. He wants to prove he's smarter than a creature that eats intelligence for breakfast. And the only way to do that, put it into a human brain. Give it words, let it speak. But who gets sacrificed? Let's start with the obvious candidate. Joe Hermit, Wendy's brother. Damaged lungs, shaky loyalties, average intelligence. Boy never planned to bring him into the Neverland Island experiment, but once Joe arrived, Boy saw him for what he is: a backup organ donor for science. Remember, Joe already had his lung used to incubate a Xenomorph. Boy literally treated him like spare parts. So why not take the next step and use his eye socket as a petri dish for an alien brain? And here's the cruel irony: Joe isn't even that smart. Boy doesn't need a genius, he needs a body. Something dumb enough to highlight the alien's intelligence. Joe fits that bill perfectly. But here's the twist. Messing with Joe means messing with Wendy. And if Wendy is already on the brink of becoming a Xenomorph queen, how do you think she's going to react when her brother becomes an alien hand puppet? Exactly. It's not just dangerous, it's suicidal. But let's not forget, Boy has his little collection of lost boys, the hybrid children. On the surface, they're his prized possessions. But deep down, they're expendable. They're prototypes, and Boy knows there's always more where that came from. Think back, he sent them on suicidal missions, exploited their biology, treated Isaac's death like a minor inconvenience. To Boy, the hybrids are investments, not people. And if sacrificing one proves that the eyeball monster can adapt to alien, human neural wiring, that's a return on investment. Here's where it gets dark. The eye doesn't need flesh, it needs a nervous system, and the hybrids, with their wired brains, might be the perfect test. Could the Ocellus unlock their full potential? Or worse, could it rewrite them into something Boy can't control? That's the forbidden knowledge Boy isn't considering. In trying to test the eye, he might hand over the keys to his entire hybrid empire. Then there's Dame Sylvia, Boy's lead scientist, his reluctant conscience, his occasional headache. She's already shown too much attachment to the hybrids. She's a liability, and Boy doesn't tolerate liabilities. Now imagine this. Boy straps Sylvia into the chair, not because she's expendable, but because she's brilliant. He wants to see what happens when the eye latches onto a gifted brain. Does it multiply her genius? Does it devour it? Here's the kicker: Boy has said before that Sylvia has one of the finest minds he's ever seen. But in his twisted worldview, that's not a compliment. It's a challenge. He wants to break her. To prove that even her brilliance is nothing compared to him, or to the alien he thinks he controls. That's the horror. For Sylvia, the punishment isn't death. It's being turned into a vessel for something she spent her life trying to stop. If you've watched Alien long enough, you know one thing: the corporation never wins. Weyland-Yutani tried, others tried. They always end up dead, burned, eaten, or worse. So let me throw this back at you. What if the eye isn't just a tool? What if it's been studying Boy this whole time, waiting for him to make the offer? Imagine it: Boy sets up his grand experiment, smug and confident, and then the eye refuses the sacrifice. Instead, it lunges for him. Poetic justice. The Boy genius, the mastermind, the villain of Neverland, becoming the very monster he thought he could control. Now tell me that wouldn't break the internet. And that, my friends, is only the surface. Because next we're going to push deeper. What does it really mean if Joe becomes the host? What if Wendy snaps and crowns herself queen? And how does the eyeball monster rewrite the entire mythology of the franchise? But before we dive, I need you all to lock in with me. If you're watching this far, you're clearly obsessed with the same forbidden corners of Alien Earth as I am. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's next, so hit that subscribe button right now. Not tomorrow. Now, because this story is about to spiral into places even Boy Kavalier isn't ready for. Here's the thing about Boy Kavalier, he's not playing chess, he's playing God. And when someone starts playing God in the alien universe, history tells us exactly how it ends: blood, betrayal, and monsters no one can contain. So let's get into it. Joe Hermit, Wendy's brother, the problem child of Neverland. On paper, he's the perfect host expendable, knave, already used as spare parts once before. But here's the forbidden angle: Joe isn't just disposable, he's a fuse. And Boy Kavalier might be about to light it. Joe has always been a wild card, too stubborn to obey, too fragile to fight, and too human to ignore. Boy keeps him around because he's useful, but only as a scapegoat, a distraction, a body to throw at the fire when things go wrong. Now imagine this: Boy decides Joe's time is up. He straps him down, inserts the T, Ocellus, into his eye, and waits. In that moment, Joe stops being Joe, he becomes something else. A voice for the alien intelligence, a puppet for the eye's agenda. And here's the real nightmare. Joe isn't just Wendy's brother, he's a tether to humanity. If Boy destroys him, Wendy has no reason to stay grounded. No reason to resist the Xenomorph calling inside her. In other words, Joe's sacrifice isn't just about him, it's about Wendy's transformation. Kill Joe, and Wendy might stop fighting for the Lost Boys and start ruling them. As a queen, from the start, Wendy's story has been walking a razor's edge. She's protective, loyal, but also curious, dangerously curious, about the Xenomorph inside her. Boy knows this. He pushes her, he tempts her, he frames it as science, but what he's really doing is feeding the monster inside her chest. Now picture the moment she sees Joe, her last living bond to family, sacrificed for Boy's experiment. That's the snap. That's the moment Wendy stops being Wendy. In her rage, in her grief, she doesn't just hate Boy. She embraces the thing he's been trying to weaponize. She stops being his pawn and becomes his rival, the Xenomorph queen. And if you think one queen on Earth is bad, try adding corporate scientists, hybrids, and a calculating eyeball monster into the mix. That's not survival, that's apocalypse. But let's pause, because all of this assumes Boy is in control, that he's the one making choices, that he's choosing Joe or Wendy or Sylvia. But here's the darker truth: what if the eye is choosing him? Think back. Every time the T, Ocellus, moved, it wasn't random. It orchestrated Isaac's death. It manipulated humans without needing to lift a finger. It doesn't just live inside hosts, it plays them, like pieces on a board. So ask yourself, why hasn't it fought back harder? Why hasn't it escaped? Why does it seem almost patient? Because maybe, just maybe, it's waiting for Boy to open the door, waiting for him to line up a human host, waiting for him to think he's in charge so it can flip the script. And when that happens, Boy Kavalier won't just lose control, he'll become the host, the puppet, the toy he thought he was building. Of course, Boy could avoid the Joe problem altogether and just use one of his hybrid children. He's already shown he doesn't care about them, he treats them like property. Isaac's death didn't faze him. Dame Sylvia's warnings mean nothing. To Boy, the hybrids are tools. But here's the paradox. If Boy uses a hybrid, he risks something even bigger than losing control. He risks creating the first hybrid alien intelligence. Think about it. Hybrids are already wired, half machine, half human. They're artificial but conscious. The eye doesn't just amplify brains, it hijacks them. So what happens when it plugs into a synthetic, organic mind? Two possibilities. One, it fails, the experiment dies. Boy shrugs and tries again. Two, it works. And if it works, Boy doesn't just create a monster, he creates the next step in evolution. Something smarter than him. Smarter than the Xenomorphs. Smarter than us. That's not an experiment. That's extinction on a timer. And then there's Dame Sylvia. Let's not forget her. She's the only person on the island who still cares about the hybrids like their children. She pushes back. She argues. She reminds Boy that these aren't toys, they're lives. But Boy doesn't see it that way. To him, Sylvia is a liability. And liabilities get punished. So here's where things could twist. Either Boy uses Sylvia as the host out of spite, feeding her to the monster she hates, or Sylvia does the unthinkable. She volunteers. Why? Because she knows what Boy doesn't. That the eye is too dangerous to give to anyone else. That if it's going to infect someone, better her than a child, better her than Wendy, better her than Joe. That's the tragedy of Sylvia's character. Her compassion makes her the perfect scientist and the perfect sacrifice. But here's the secret none of them can see. Boy Kavalier's flaw isn't his ambition. It isn't even his cruelty. It's his arrogance. He thinks he's playing God, but what he doesn't realize is that the gods of this story, the Xenomorphs, the Eye, the monsters, they don't share the throne. They devour it. So while Boy plots and schemes and ways which body to sacrifice, the truth is already written. He's not the master of the Eye. He's the appetizer. And when that moment comes, when the Eye finally finds its perfect host, the question won't be, who does Boy choose? The question will be, who does the Eye want? And trust me, in page 3, we're going all the way down the rabbit hole. What happens if the Eye succeeds? What does a human, eyeball hybrid actually look like? And how does this decision tie into the larger fate of Alien Earth, and maybe even the entire Alien franchise? Stay with me, because the answers aren't pretty. Let's not kid ourselves. Whoever becomes the T, Ocellus' new host doesn't just change the story, they change the rules of the game. Because this monster isn't about teeth and claws, it isn't about acid blood or stealth kills, it's about control, minds, strategy. And when it finally gets a human host, the chessboard flips. So let's go deeper. What happens if Joe, Hermit, Wendy, Dame Sylvia, or even Boy himself becomes the vessel? Let's look at every forbidden possibility. And why, no matter what, Alien Earth will never be the same again. This is the most tragic path. Joe, the damaged, overlooked survivor, finally gets attention, only it's from the worst possible source. The eye plugs into him, hijacks his body, and suddenly Joe isn't weak anymore. He's sharp, strategic, cold. And that's exactly the problem. Because for Wendy, this isn't just losing her brother. It's worse. It's watching him live on, but not as himself. Imagine the heartbreak of hearing Joe speak with someone else's voice, watching his body move with alien precision. That's not family anymore. That's a weapon in Boy's pocket, or worse, a weapon against him. And here's the dark twist. If Joe becomes the host, Wendy's loyalty vanishes. She doesn't just break with Boy. She embraces the one thing powerful enough to stop him, the queen waiting in her chest. Boy thinks he's creating a tool, but really he's lighting the fuse to the war he can't win. Now this is the nightmare scenario, because Wendy isn't just another survivor, she's on the cusp of something bigger. She's already teetering between humanity and the Xenomorph inside her. Give the eye control of Wendy's body, and you don't just get a host. You get a queen with intelligence, a Xenomorph with strategy. That's not an accident waiting to happen, that's extinction. Imagine a queen who doesn't just hunt blindly but calculates. Imagine Hive building not through instinct but through design. Every human outpost, every colony ship, mapped and dismantled with precision. That's not just survival of the fittest, that's conquest. And the forbidden truth here is that Boy knows it. He knows Wendy's potential. And that's why he's afraid. Because if he hands her to the eye, he doesn't create a monster. He creates a rival. This one feels almost poetic. Sylvia, the woman who fought to protect the hybrids, who tried to save lives, who clung to compassion even when surrounded by cruelty. Boy could kill her with one decision, turn her into a host. And on the surface, that's a punishment, a cruel way of silencing her defiance. But underneath, it's the one path that could actually save the island. Because Sylvia has the strength to resist. She's brilliant enough to fight back. And what if, for the first time in alien history, a host pushes back against its parasite? Think about that. The eye wants control, but Sylvia might not give it easily. That internal war could shatter her, or it could unlock something terrifying, a human mind fused with alien cognition. Not submission, not dominance, a merger. And if that happens, Boy won't just regret creating her, he'll fear her. And now we come to the forbidden ending, the one the audience secretly wants. The poetic justice. Boy has played God for too long. He's toyed with lives, sacrificed children, treated people like lab rats. But what if the lab rat bites back? What if the eye has been waiting, watching, choosing not Joe, not Wendy, not Sylvia, but Boy? Picture it. Boy Kavalier, the genius, the manipulator, the monster in a lab coat, finally humbled, finally stripped of his control. But here's the dark irony. If the eye chooses him, it doesn't just destroy him, it upgrades him. It fuses with the one person arrogant enough to believe he deserves it. And the result? A villain unlike anything the alien universe has ever seen. Not a queen, not a corporation, not a soldier. A man with a god complex, finally given the power to back it up.